Today I'm in the kitchen making a croquembouche. This tower of cream stuffed profiteroles is a classic French dessert that's worthy of any special occasion. Although there is quite a few steps involved, you can make your own pastry masterpiece right in your own home. I'm Rebecca and welcome to my kitchen. This is how I make a croquembouche. To make this dessert, I'm going to need 4 things: profiteroles, a filling, I'm going to be using pastry cream and whipping cream, a cone, and a caramel glue to stick everything together. I'm going to start off by making my pastry cream. I'm starting off with a heavy bottom sauce pot on medium heat. This will help transfer the heat evenly, which will help me not scorch or burn my milk. Add 4 cups of milk to the pot. I wouldn't use anything less than 2% because we want this to be a decadent cream after all. Then I'm going to scrape the seeds out of 1 vanilla bean. To do this, cut the vanilla bean in half lengthwise and run a knife down the inside to kind of flatten the pod open, and the seeds will scrape out onto the knife. Make sure to scrape out as much as you can since the seeds hold so much flavor. And since vanilla beans are pretty pricey, you want to get every last drop of flavor out of it. If you want, you can add the pod to the milk along with the seeds. The pod is full of flavor, and as you steep the milk, flavor will be infused from the pod as well. If you don't have a vanilla bean, you can use 1 teaspoon of vanilla bean paste or 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. The real pod will give the very best flavor, and the paste being a close second. I give the milk a bit of a whisk to break up any of the vanilla seeds while I watch for the milk to steam. Just before it starts to form bubbles and simmer, I remove it from the heat and set it aside to steep while the milk infuses with all the vanilla flavor. I'm going to cut a half a cup of cold butter into cubes and drop them into the bottom of a large bowl. On top of that bowl, I'm going to place my fine mesh strainer. I'm not going to need this until the end, so I can set it aside for now. Now to get my eggs ready. To a large bowl, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar and a half a cup of cornstarch. Then I'm going to separate my eggs and only add the egg yolks. I'm going to set the whites aside for another project. Whisk this mixture together until it looks light and creamy. By now, the milk should be fully infused with flavor, so I'm going to use it to temper my eggs. Tempering needs to gradually bring the eggs up to a high temperature. This is necessary or the eggs will scramble and you'll have a lumpy scrambled pastry cream, and that doesn't sound great to me. Little by little, add the hot milk while constantly whisking the egg mixture. I'm making sure to bring the whisk to the bottom and the sides of the bowl so everything is getting fully mixed in. Once about half of the milk mixture is into the eggs, you can start to add it in a little more quickly. After the milk is fully incorporated, you can return everything back to the pot and put it back over medium heat. We're now at the crucial point where things go quickly from not done to perfectly done to overdone in seconds, so I'm going to whisk and watch my pastry cream the whole time. This part takes less than 5 minutes. While I'm whisking, I can see and feel the pastry cream thickening. Make sure you're using your whisk to scrape the bottom and sides of the pot as you go so nothing gets stuck to the pot or overcooked. Once you see it getting quite thick and start to have a glossy shine, it's almost done. As soon as you see bubbles start to break on the surface from the mixture coming to a simmer, the pastry cream is done. I remove the pot from the heat and immediately pass the cream through the fine mesh strainer that I prepared earlier and let it mix with the cold butter. This will strain out any lumps if any bits of egg became overcooked and will stop the cooking process as soon as the mixture hits the cold butter. Push the rest of the cream through the strainer and scrape down the bottom into the bowl. Give it a final whisking to mix in the butter. Now I need to set aside to cool to room temperature, but first I'm going to place a piece of cling film right on top of the cream, which will stop the pastry cream from forming a skin. Now I'm going to move on to the profiteroles. I'm starting off by adding 3/4 of a cup of milk and 3/4 of a cup of water to a sauce pot over medium heat. I'm going to add in 2/3 of a cup of butter. It doesn't really matter if it's softened or not. If you're taking it right out of the fridge, it'll just take longer to melt. Add in 1 tablespoon of sugar and a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to cook this mixture on medium until it reaches a simmer, and then I'm going to turn it down to medium-low. it's simmered for a few minutes, I'm going to add in the flour and stir with a wooden spoon or strong spatula. I'm going to keep stirring until all the flour is incorporated and it becomes a smooth dough ball that cleans the sides of the pot. Now I'm going to use my stand mixer, but you can also use a large bowl with beaters. Add the dough to the bowl with the paddle attachment and mix on medium to cool down the dough enough so you can add the eggs. With the mixer still going, add the 5 eggs one at a time and continue to mix until you have a thick batter. You'll have to stop and scrape down the bowl once or twice during the process. Now I'm going to get out a large piping bag with a large circular tip. This is going to help me pipe smooth, uniform dough balls. About half the batter fit into my piping bag, so I'm going to need to fill it up twice. Now I'm going to start piping it onto a lined baking sheet. I'm piping about 1 to 2 tablespoons worth of batter into each one, and separated by about 1.5 inches so they have room to puff up in the oven. Don't worry too much about their shape right now, we're going to fix them before they go into the oven. Get a small glass of water and with a wet fingertip smooth down the top of the dough balls. If you leave them in this kind of candy kiss shape, the little tip at the top will burn. Meanwhile, I'm going to preheat my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I can bake my profiteroles for 10 minutes. This first burst of heat will help them puff up. Then I reduce the temperature to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and continue to cook for 15 minutes or until they're golden and feel really light and hollow. If they're undercooked, they'll still have a bit of heaviness left to them and they will collapse as they cool. Let them cool completely before filling. Luckily, they cool very quickly since they're basically hollow on the inside. Once my profiteroles and pastry cream have cooled, I can start filling. I'm going to put my pastry cream into a piping bag with a small tip or cut a small hole in the end of your piping bag. I'm going to find a weak spot somewhere in the profiterole and poke the end of the piping bag through. Squeeze in the filling until you can feel the weight in your hand or until you see a little bit of the filling peek out of the hole. Then you know your filling is in the pastry. I'm going to fill the first half of my profiteroles with the rest of the pastry cream, and then I'm going to switch and fill the last half with whipped cream that I've sweetened with a little bit of icing sugar. When I make this croquembouche for New Year's, I always make one of the profiteroles with something inside. Then, during the New Year's party, the person who ends up with that one gets luck for the new year. To get the cone ready, you can buy pre-made metal, plastic, or styrofoam cones at most craft and cake supply stores. However, I'm going to make one out of parchment paper that's going to be supported by a large paper cup. Now I can get started with the last recipe for this dessert, and that is the caramel. This caramel is going to be liquid when it's heated and dry hard as it cools, which will glue everything together. To a sauce pot, I'm going to add 3 cups of white sugar, 3 tablespoons of corn syrup, and 1/2 cup of water. I'm also going to have 1 to 2 tablespoons of water off to the side. We'll not be stirring this mixture at all as it's cooking, but instead be brushing the inside of the pot with water. I'm going to bring the mixture to a boil over medium-high heat, and while it's starting to bubble, I'm going to get a large bowl or tray and place ice water inside. This is going to be an ice bath. As soon as the caramel is done, I'm going to dip the bottom of the pot into the water to stop the cooking process. Caramel can easily get carried away with itself and continue to cook even after you've removed it from the heat. It is most definitely one of those things in the kitchen that's going to go from not done to perfectly done to burnt beyond repair in about 30 seconds. And this water bath is going to be integral in stopping me from suffering this fate. As soon as my caramel reaches a light amber color, it's done and ready to move gently to the water bath. It's important to be quite careful with hot caramel as it gets extremely hot and I don't want any boiling hot sugar stuck to my skin. Now I can set myself up with caramel, profiteroles, and my cone and start building. If you're worried about your fingers getting in the hot caramel, you can use tongs instead. I'm going to dip the pastry in the caramel and stick it to the cone. I'm going to start to work my way around and up the tower. When you start to notice the caramel become thicker, move it back to the stove on low heat. This will be enough that the sugar won't cook, but the caramel will stay liquid. I've moved my assembly line over to the stove and I just continue all the way up. At the end, you can dip a spoon or knife in the caramel and swirl the caramel strands all the way around the tower, sealing it into a sugar cage, or decorate it however you would like. Serve the croquembouche immediately and let everyone break through the sugar cage and peel off their caramel-coated profiteroles. For a more in-depth look at how to make profiteroles and pastry cream, click on the links below. Enjoy!